All right, today we are cracking open the code of one of history's most fascinating empires. We're going to look past the epic battles and the powerful sultans to find the secret engine that powered the Ottomans for an incredible 600 years. So, let's just jump right in with the big question. How did they do it? I mean, seriously, think about that. How does a small frontier principality, basically a startup nation, become a global superpower that lasts for 6 centuries? It's a huge question, and the answer is not what you might think.
You see, the obvious answer is military might. Swords, cannons, brilliant generals. And yeah, that's part of it, but that's just the hardware. The real secret, the thing we're exploring today, is their social software. This incredible operating system of shared beliefs, trust, and ethics that really held the whole thing together. So here's our game plan. First, we'll set the stage, going beyond the battlefield. Then, we'll look at the spiritual fire that fueled their expansion. After that, we'll dive into their amazing economic system, which was all about trust. We'll see how they tried to balance the needs of the individual with the community, and finally, wrap it all up with a very modern idea, social capital.
Okay, let's get into it. Part 1, Beyond the Sultan Swords. Because to understand this social software, you first have to understand the world it was born into. It was a world of chaos. So picture this. It's the middle of the 13th century in Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. The big power in the region, the Seljuk Sultanate, just got wrecked by the Mongols. So there's this huge power vacuum. And into that void pop up all these little Turkish principalities, called beyliks, all scrambling for power. And right in the middle of this free-for-all, this one group, led by a guy named Osman, starts to make its move. And this is the key. The Ottomans weren't born in some stable, established heartland. They were on the fringe, this wild, volatile frontier zone, a real no-man's land caught between the Christian Byzantine Empire and the Muslim world. And that frontier wasn't just a place, it was a pressure cooker. It forged a whole new kind of society. So, what kind of society came out of that pressure cooker? Well, that brings us to the spiritual engine of this new enterprise. This is where we find the human fuel that really got things going. You had these two incredible groups of people out on the frontier, and they formed this powerful symbiotic relationship. First, you have the Ghazis. These were the warriors, the tip of the spear, the military muscle. They were driven by an idea called Gaza, which was a mix of holy war and, let's be honest, raiding for treasure. And then you had the dervishes. These were wandering holy men, mystics, who preached a very flexible, tolerant brand of Islam that really appealed to the diverse people out there on the frontier. They were the spiritual fuel. And this quote just nails it. The Ghazis had the swords, but it was the dervishes who gave them the purpose. They gave the warriors a reason to fight that was bigger than just getting rich. They turned a simple raid into a holy mission. They gave it meaning. And this is how it worked in practice. It's all about legitimacy. It wasn't enough to just be the toughest warlord around. You needed divine approval. I mean, the founding story of the whole empire is a perfect example. The leader, Osman, has this famous dream about a giant tree growing out of him and covering the world. Cool dream, right? But it's just a dream until a respected dervish, Sheikh Edebli, says, aha, this means God has chosen you to rule. That interpretation, that's what gives him cut, divine sanction. Suddenly, he's not just another chieftain, he's God's chosen leader. And that's a banner that the best warriors will flock to. Okay, so you've got your divinely sanctioned army. But an army marches on its stomach, and an empire needs an economy. This brings us to maybe the most fascinating part of the story. This incredible organization called the Ahi Order, which built an entire economy based on trust. So what was the Ahi Order? Well, on the surface, it was a network of artisans and merchants. Think of them as guilds. But as you can see from this definition, it was so much more than that. Their goal wasn't just to make money. It was to build a good society, to weave ethics and fairness directly into the fabric of the economy. The best way to think of it is like a modern-day mashup. It was part trade guild, setting standards for quality. It was part quality control agency, making sure customers weren't cheated. It was a social safety net, taking care of members who fell on hard times. And most importantly, it was a moral compass for the entire community. All in one. And here's the part that is just so radical. To be an Ahi, to be a member of this order, it wasn't enough to be a great craftsman. You had to be a good person. Your character, your integrity, was just as important as your skill with a hammer or a loom. The whole system was built on it.
And they were not messing around. Just look at this list of things that could get you kicked out. Yeah, you've got stuff like lying and misappropriation, which makes sense for business, but look at the others. Pride and arrogance, mercilessness, jealousy. This wasn't just a business code. It was a code for how to be a decent, trustworthy human being.
This, right here, this was their core philosophy. Job number one was not to make a good pair of shoes. Job number one was to make a good person. The idea was that if you can first build an ethical, honorable, trustworthy individual, then high-quality work and a fair economy will just naturally follow. It's a profound concept, character before capital. So you have this spiritual dimension and this economic system built on ethics. How did it all come together to form a society? Well, that takes us to their unique social blueprint, this attempt to balance the individual and the state. Now, if we oversimplify a bit, you can think of modern systems in two big buckets. You have capitalist systems, where the community largely serves the interests of the individual, and you have socialist systems, where the individual is expected to serve the state. What the Ottomans were trying to do, through the Ahi philosophy, was find a third way, a middle path, a balance between the two. They didn't see it as an either-or choice. It wasn't the individual versus the community. The goal was to create a system where you could have individual ambition and freedom, but also a deep sense of responsibility to the people around you. That balance, that was the very heart of their social software. All right, let's tie this all together, because everything we've been talking about, this trust, these shared values, it all points to a very powerful, very modern concept. We're talking about their legacy of social capital. This was the enduring secret. What the Ottomans were building piece by piece is what we today call social capital. It's not about money in the bank. It's the wealth of trust that exists in a society. It's the shared values, the unspoken rules of cooperation that just make everything work, from doing business to defending the frontier. It's the glue. And I love this quote because it just says it all. You can buy weapons, you can import grain, you can hire experts from other countries, but you can't import trust. You can't buy a shared sense of purpose. That stuff, that's social capital. It has to be built from the inside, from the ground up. It was their priceless, homegrown asset. So when we go back to that first question, how did this tiny principality become a world-spanning empire? The answer is so much deeper than just military conquest. The foundation wasn't just laid with swords, but with a sophisticated social technology. A system designed to create trust, to build a shared purpose, and to balance core human values. That was the secret engine. And that really leaves us with a final thought for our own time. In a world that often feels fractured, where so many people are searching for a sense of purpose and community, what can we learn from a society that puts shared values right at the very center of everything? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.